Good afternoon. Assalamu alaikum. A warm welcome to our session today. Thank you for waiting for our guests who have joined some time back. Uh, Myself, Guru, I would be the main trainer today, and along with me, Bala, who's joined from Chennai, will be a co-trainer with us today. So, without much ado, I will shift to the presentation, and then we can get into that. Is my screen visible? Just you can give a thumbs up or chat in the chat board, please. Fine. So I'm seeing a lot of yes there. So good. So today's session, we are going to cover the e-invoicing, which is going to be the hot topic already in Saudi Arabia from 4th of December. That is just a few days away. It is going to roll out as a mandatory requirement for all the taxpayers, resident taxpayers in Saudi Arabia. So in this context, in today's presentation, we will try to cover how Zoho Books can help you to comply with the legal requirement set by zakat. So that is our main discussion today. So what we are going to do is we just request you before we start, in case if you are wanted to simultaneously look at Zoho Books, you are free to sign in also, and you can open Zoho Books and keep it aside. Maybe for the first 30 odd minutes, I'll be taking you through the presentation part. In the second 30 minutes, I will take you through the product. So you can also shadow me my actions in Zoho Books so that you can have a better understanding of the product. And if you have any questions, please use the questions tab. And if you have any challenges in audio or video presentation not getting displayed, you can let us know in the chat box. And there would be some questions during the session. I would request you kindly answer those questions. So any questions, you can just put it. So one small request, we might be able to answer some of the questions during the session itself, but I can tell you towards end of the session, we will try to answer all the questions what has been posted in. So in this is the broad agenda of the session. So we will see what is e-invoicing and who are all getting affected, the guidelines part, how you can start e-invoicing in your organization, and what are all the implementation part of e-invoicing, because it is going to be in phases, and most importantly, how can Zoho Books help. So this is going to be our agenda, and as I told earlier, we are going to take you through the product part of also, so you can see the product. We will also cover certain do's and don'ts, and what are all the benefits also in this session. So I think all of you might be aware, uh, current system of issuing invoices only either by paper or by just issuing it in an electronic format. When I say electronic format, I'm using PDF or some spreadsheets. If you issue the invoice, it is not an e-invoice. So it is this e-invoice, what the government has said is it's going to be a digital format, and you have to store that in electronically and in a particular fashion. Again, how the format fashion we are going to discuss in detail, and it is going to be mandated from December 4th, just 3 days from now. So you can ask like why the government has come up with this type of e-invoicing and why it is mandating the resident business. See, some of the reasons we can think is uh, probably one is like the shadow economy part. Many businesses, maybe your business is not involved in this, but there are quite a number of businesses which might be involved in the shadow economy. Government is not very keen on continuing with that system, and also every business has some tax obligations. So the government wants to increase the compliance factor on that. Of course, when you say shared economy, there is some commercial concealment comes into play, so that also will get reduced with this. And e-invoicing is one of the best global best practices in terms of, if you look at ease of doing business or even any other international parameter, if you look at it, e-invoicing is considered as one of the best global business practices. And of course it will also reduce the frequency and effort of audits. As you might have seen in the news, the government authority conducts many audits, etc. So probably this step will e-invoicing introduction of e-invoicing will reduce those activities, and also it will enable fair competition. When I say fair competition, when you are competing with others, this will really helpful in competing better. And last not the least, the consumer protection. When you are providing an e-invoicing, it becomes easy to track at a later point of time. So all these factors is mainly contributing to the decision of the government to provide the e-invoicing in Saudi Arabia. So the next question that comes into mind as, who are all the people who are going to get affected? We can say practically everyone who is in Saudi Arabia, who are registered with for VAT purposes, who either they can be making sale only within Saudi Arabia or even outside Saudi Arabia. And it is applicable to all the goods, taxable goods, including zero rated goods. Even if you are going to sell, even that will be e-invoicing will be applicable. So e-invoicing is also going to be applicable for all the business to business, business to government, or business to consumer transactions. All these transactions will be will be affected by e-invoicing mandate. What is not included? In case if you are providing only exempt services, then you will not be affected by the e-invoicing. You can still continue with the other way of invoicing, of however you have been doing, you can do. But I don't see not many organizations are only involved in exempt, because the last 2018 the VAT rules which has been implemented. So this covers a substantial portion of products and goods and services which are traded in the market. So definitely there are very high possibility that your business will be affected by e-invoicing. We can safely assume that, rather. So the e-invoicing is going to be implemented in two phases. The first phase, which is going to start in the 3 days time, it is going to be called as a generation phase. When I say generation phase, the expectation from the government towards taxpayer is, you are going to generate and store the tax invoices and electronic notes in a structured format, electronic format, and this must be issued from an electronic solution. So the keyword is electronic solution, and it should actually meet all the requirements of a tax invoice. So this is the expectation, rather I won't say expectation, it is an obligation of the taxpayer. So within 3 days, whatever invoice you are going to issue, tax invoice, it should mandate, it should fulfill all the requirements which I mentioned a while back. The second phase is much more detailed. When we say second phase, which is going to start from 1st January 2023, it is going to be integration and clearance. When I say integration, the Zatka portal, there will be an e-invoicing platform which will be accessible by the taxpayer and also by organizations, electronic software or electronic solution providers like us. So this portal, it should be directly integratable with the software solution. So whenever you generate a electronic invoice or an electronic note, the obligation is there to share the data and information to the Zatka portal. So in that phase, the requirement is going to be much more enhanced. Your system must be connected to the internet, uh, preferably, or rather I would say at most of the cases, online at that particular point of time. So then it would be easy to do the integration and clearance. So again, that is some time away. Sometime when I say like almost a year is there, but it is better or rather good to have a system which provides the solution for both the phases. Generally software solution is not changed every year. So it is preferred that one chooses a solution which adapts to both the phases. So what are all the classifications available in e-invoices? There are two types. One is standard e-invoice, which or we can call it as tax invoice, is to for mainly for B2B and B2G transactions. And another is simplified tax e-invoice, which is for end consumers. End consumers means generally people who are not registered with the tax. When I say business to consumer, maybe retail stores or supermarkets, those type of invoices, you might not have all the information which is required in a standard e-invoice. So that there are some limited fields are expected to be printed or provided there. So that will be B2C transactions. So these are all the two e-invoices we are talking about. So when we say in the phase one, this particular e-invoice, you can directly issue to your customers or buyers, but you need to get it authenticated by Zka in phase two. That is the main difference. So in phase one, you can directly generate an invoice with from any electronic solution which is having all the requirements. You can directly issue the invoice to your customer basically. But in phase two, before sending it to your client, you must get it authenticated. For authentication, there are a lot of procedures. We will try to cover some of that in today's session, but definitely that is going to be the expectation. For standard e-invoice in the phase one, VAT registration number is a must, but QR code is optional. That means if you want to print the QR code, you can print it, or in case if you decide not to use the QR code in the phase one for B2B or B2G transactions, it is okay. But generally, we suggest that it is preferred that you can go with the QR code. More on the QR code a bit later. As far as simplified e-invoicing, QR code is a mandatory requirement. The system must show the QR code. And another mandatory requirement in the e-invoice for simplified e-invoice is you must provide a printed copy to the customer. You cannot say that I'm providing e-invoicing, so I will not provide a printed copy. So printed copy must be provided. And there is a small deviation here they have allowed in the e-invoice for simplified purposes. You have a time limit of 24 hours. See, once you generate an invoice, yes, you have to store the invoice and you have to give a printed copy. But for reporting to Zatka, you will have a time frame of 24 hours. It's mainly from the perspective of supermarkets or large format stores where the turnaround time for the customer waiting at the counter, you cannot wait for a long period. So from that perspective, this particular relaxation, I think, is provided there. So this is the two different types of simplified e-invoice and the standard e-invoice. The certain do's and don'ts we wanted to cover here. One is the time is very short now, but still, I would say you need to choose a compliant e-invoicing system approved by Zka so that you are at least have a reasonable protection and feel that yes, your solution is compliant to Zka guidelines. And also, there is a requirement that you need to train your staff, because many times what happens if you are shifting from some other solution to another software, that the staff, the people who are going to generate the invoice need some training. So the time limit is very less, just 3 days are left. So you must choose a system which is very easily trainable, or it should be by yourself, DIY. When I say do it yourself, so the system should have the necessary functionalities or videos or self-learning material, knowledge base, so the people can get themselves trained at a very, very fast pace. And also it is a good practice to understand from technical experts what are all the requirements are there for this. Yes, this particular session is one step towards that, so that you can familiarize yourself with the requirements of e-invoicing. Again, we are trying to avoid all the technical jargon here to as far as possible, but still, as a business owner or as an accounts manager, it's better that you have some basic idea of what are all the expectations from the technical and security requirement standpoint. So what I would request you is I will take a small pause, and I will ask you a simple question. Bala, can you put a poll, or how is it like?
Yes, Guru, doing it now.
Yeah. Bala, once done, then let me know, please.
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Just a minute. Fine. Thank you for your answers to the poll. Let's move on. So there are some don'ts also. Which are the most important things we are covering here? One is you should never ever allow anonymous access for creating an invoice. So invoice or any of the related transactions. The system must have the facility to track the user who has created the invoice. That is a very important requirement. Never ever delete or alter the transaction or associated notes after that has been sent. So for example, previously also it was not a suggested feature, like you generated invoice and you change the quantity or you change the rate, or you change certain things, or you add an item, or you delete a service or a product. So this is not at all accepted in the e-invoicing environment. And you cannot create multiple e-invoice sequences in your system. So this is a slightly a technical matter. Say when we say e-invoicing sequence, from your organization there can be only one sequence. Yes, the normal question is there could be many branches or many tills or point of sales within your organization. That is fine, but still it will follow one e-invoicing sequence. Generally the software which solution which you are using should be able to undertake this. And last but not the least, you are not expected to change the time or stamping key, exporting the stamping key, because the changing the system time or date or any of those things are not at all suggested, or rather I would say not at all permitted by the law in this case. So these are all some of the main things which you are not expected to do in the during the system. See, I think this we have covered a bit. Of course, the data which is stored in electronic format will be secure, and you can, when you are having a paper manual creation of invoices, sometimes there is a possibility that the errors are creeping in into the system. So, so this business owner will be finding it easy to get into the slip ups, avoid the slip ups, and as well as most of the tax regimes in the world, I would just go one step ahead in this rather than what is presented here. In certain countries, there is a concept of making tax digital. So this provides a very good experience for the business owner also, and as well as the government authority who is bringing into the regime. So I'm not talking from a Saudi Arabian perspective. From other countries, what happens is once you are getting into e-invoicing mode, generally in those countries the government prepares a draft monthly return or quarterly tax return, because the government has the data, what are all the purchases you made, what are all the taxes, sales you made, in case of any debit notes, credit notes you made. So the chances of errors in tax paying or tax compliance becomes very less. So that is the overall goal, I feel. Again, I'm not very sure on the Saudi environment, but this is the way most of the governments across, specifically in the western part of the world, this has been the making tax digital is the way ahead. So this is the major benefits I would say towards e-invoicing. So without much ado, we will see like how Zoho Books can really help for you in transition into this journey. So in today's session, we are going to cover the Zoho Books part only from the perspective of e-invoicing. But having said that, uh, you might be aware from our public media, we have been announced as one of the qualified e-invoicing service providers, and it is also a VAT compliant accounting software. So we have all the credentials required to serve your organization in terms of financial accounting or even e-invoicing perspective. Of course, the books software which we are going to cover in the next session, it will allow you to generate and send invoices. You can also reconcile bank transactions. You can manage all your inventory, how much stock you are carrying, and you can generate all the MIS reports required for operating your business. The decision support system, the Zoho Books can be one of your best decision support system for managing the business. So some of the salient features I would cover is the VAT compliance, which we have been ever since the Saudi Arabia got into the VAT from 5% later to 15%. We have been continuously updating our systems so that the software is VAT compliant. And also we provide the complete banking functionality. When I say banking functionality, using our third-party solution providers, uh, many banks in Saudi, can get connected to the Zoho Books, so the data entry part can be reduced to a large extent in Zoho Books. You can also set up rules to classify the transactions, and it hits the right book chart of accounts. And it has the complete inventory management. When I say complete inventory management, whenever you buy a stock, it will get in, the stock will go up and the valuation will get adjusted accordingly. Same way, you can sell the stock will get reduced, so you will have a basic inventory management functionality within Zoho Books. But in case if you need more advanced inventory management in terms of warehouse, or keeping the material with a unique tracking numbers of individual items, or for that matter, you want to connect with some third party solutions like Shopify, where you wanted to promote the product on the online world, we have a solution called Zoho Inventory, which integrates tightly integrated with Zoho Books, that is available. We also have projects and timesheets. In case if your organization is into projects, you can use the facility to set a cost for the project, and you can define the work items. And if the project is going to be the expenses incurred on the project can be recorded. And in case if your contract allows you to reclaim that from your customer, even that can be handled easily here. And of course we have 50 plus reports in Zoho Books, which are consulting thousands of customers. We have generated the reports. Of course there are multiple options to enable disable certain features, and we have recently introduced customizing the report for select reports we have provided. So we have the complete feature set Zoho Books, which we are going to take you through. But again, today's discussion, in the interest of time, we are not going to cover all this. But in case if any of you wants to have a detailed look at it, please put a message in chat bot, or whenever you are posted with that query, Bala will help you to arrange a meeting, online meeting, to take you through those functionalities and features. So before we switch into the product, I will just quickly take you through some of the main points. One is one-time setup. So since the time is very less, hardly a matter of 3 days now left. So you need a solution which can immediately get set up. I'm sorry, in a very short amount of time. Zoho Books can help in this. It can also prevent unauthorized access. So whenever you are signing up into Zoho Books, you can create named user accounts with their email IDs. With that, even if in case if you want, you can also go for a two-factor authentication in the system for access control. And you can prevent your, say maybe in your office you might have some junior users who might not be privileged to know all the information happening in books of accounts. You can prevent certain access to them. Of course, you will be very easy to create and manage e-invoices and associated notes, which we are going to see it in the next few minutes. And you can protect your transactions and records. When I say protection, in terms of data security, and you can even lock the records. For example, after you file the VAT return, maybe you do not want anyone to touch the previous transactions even by accident. So even that kind of protection, in terms of record protection, you can do it. And last but not the least, you can store the transactions and records. When I say store the transactions, you might have some contracts, or you might have some other invoices received from other organizations. You wanted to attach it with the transaction, all those functionalities, so that the Zoho Books can be the first point of repository for data storage whenever you are going to interact with be it ZCA or any other government authority. You can use Zoho Books as a storage for your business documents, also related to your business transactions. So all these things we are going to show to you quickly now. So any this thing, we can get into the product, I feel. Bala?
Yeah, sure, Guru. The presentation was good actually. So we will just go into the product now. We'll take. I mean, the people. I mean, the attendees are interested in knowing about our invoices, e-invoices, and the QR code and everything. They also wanted to see the templates that we have. So you can just include that too in your presentation.
Yeah, very well. Thank you, Bala. So we are now into this dashboard screen of Zoho Books. I will not, get into the time of creation of an organization and specifying the VAT number, etc. But once you created the organization, you logged in as an administrator. This is the type of screen you will get in the organization profile. I'll just show you one quick thing. So you can specify your address, the time zone, date format, company ID, all this stuff. Also, in case if you are coming under VAT regime, you can specify the tax rate, or you business registered with the VAT, you can specify the TRN number, and you can specify the VAT registration date, etc. Of course, the tax rates will get automatically populated 15 and 0 as the case expected of. So these are all the basic settings you will do. I will skip the customer creation and vendor creation, all this standard part. I will directly jump into the e-invoicing. When I say e-invoicing, the system is being enriched behind the hood. That means if you are an existing user of Zoho Books, you need not do any update or upgrade or anything. So all you need to do is just go log into Zoho Books, and you just get into preferences, and there is a new button called e-invoicing. What you are going to do is, it would have been disabled, just enable this on 4th December. So by enabling it, all the settings required for e-invoicing is taken care of. When I say all the settings, you need not be worried about generation of UUID, that is uniformly unique identifier, or hash, a code which needs to be generated for each invoicing sequencing hash. All these technical aspects are automatically taken care by Zoho Books technical team. So you are just going to switch on this button. So that is what I was telling when I was mentioning as easy setup. So this is the only one button you are going to switch it to make it as a e-invoicing compliant Zoho Books solution. So the moment you set that as e-invoicing enabled, all the internal settings gets automatically updated. You need not worry about that. So let us see how an e-invoicing is generated from the system. So let me make an invoice directly. So I'll create a new invoice. I will select a customer. See, in the interest of time, I will skip many things, which is very standard things available in the system. So I can specify this. I can select an item. I am purposefully doing something. So I'll just come back. Say I will say 100 toothbrushes I wanted to sell. The rate is automatically come 8.5. Here, the key differentiator here in terms of e-invoicing is when you are creating an invoice date, that becomes a key. So the moment you generate an e-invoice before 4th of December, it will not get applicable. So the moment I set as 4th December, of course, it will give a warning that the date is in the future, but for the time being, we will ignore this and we'll move on. I create an invoice, and I can say save and send. See, when I say save and send, what happens in the system is it automatically creates an invoice, and it is shifting to email ID of the customer. I have not given the email ID of the customer, so it is not sending this. But there is a facility, you can directly email the invoice to the customer. Now, in this case, I will not invoice. I can attach the invoice PDF, which is already there. I will just cancel it, and I will mark this invoice as sent. The moment I make this invoice as sent, the system automatically shows me the e-invoice available. So the QR code is by default embedded into the system, and you can see all the requirements of tax invoice is also met as earlier. So the system automatically generates the e-invoice. So just in case if you wanted to see the screen in a bigger fashion, because I heard that there are a lot of questions on the templates, I will just cover my part for the both the type of invoice, and I will get into the template part. Right now, I have taken a very standard template which is available here. So I'm showing you this, but you have the flexibility to configure the template to a large extent as per your business requirement. I'm using the word large extent. So that is available in the system. So your e-invoice is ready. So this is a standard B2G or B2B e-invoice I have created in this. So let me create another e-invoice. So I will do for a customer, say Ali Muhammad. He is a walk-in customer for me. He does not possess any TRN number, or he is not a registered business. I am going to sell the same toothbrush. Instead of 50 pieces, I'm going to sell only one toothbrush to him. When I sell one toothbrush to him, same, everything concept remains the same. There is nothing, no change in this. So I will say save and send. Sorry. So I will save and send. The system will generate the e-invoice here. Of course, it is expecting the email because the way I have configured the system, it expects me to send an email. But in this case, I will still mark as sent. You can see the e-invoice in a simplified fashion. So this is a simplified tax e-invoice which contains the QR code. Now, there were some questions regarding the QR code. If I scan it, what it will give? It will give some random characters. Currently, system is configured to give some random characters. So we are in discussion with Zakat authority to see like how this has to be handled. So once we get the more clarity, we will be able to provide you some other update on this, whether the government authority will provide the information which is given in the e-invoice, or it is going to be the service provider who is going to provide this information. So there is, and also there are some security related concerns also are there. So those things are getting worked out. But please take for a moment now that this is contained some random numbers will only be available at this point of time. Now, when we say different invoices, the template question always comes into play. So I'll just quickly clear it out so that the viewers can get it easily understand. You have an option of edit template, and in editing template, when I say edit template, I get the formats available here. So I can specify, and I also can set the various formats: header, footer, what are all the layout I want to have. I can have a total, I can have a footer, I can have an annexure also. In the footer, I can, I can add my own annexure content. Say something else I want to do, I can specify, or even I can have my own signature in the footer. Sometimes you wanted to give your own signature, you can do all those things. You can customize your footer content also. Say you can say signature, and you can attach an image there. So these functionalities are there. So to a large extent, I think the invoice can be customized without any programming effort. So now, as far as template things are concerned, this is the templates which is available. But also there is another functionality by which you can do the, sorry, even for you can say customize. You can change the template. When I say change the template, you have a list of templates available. You can select from the list of templates which is showing here, but you can add, you can also get more templates from the system. So this is the template format of e-invoicing. Another key requirement of government authority is, you once you generate an invoice, you are not expected to edit it. So in this case, let me try to edit the transaction. Now, by opening the system itself, it gives a warning that some fields, only some fields can be edited. So when I say some fields, maybe you classified as a X as a salesperson, now you want to change to Y as a salesperson, it's fine, it is acceptable. But if I go and change anything which is of materialistic importance, like 100 pieces I sold, now I will make 50 pieces instead of 100, I wanted to see. Now let me see what happens to this. I say save and send. or I just save. So you cannot edit or delete the transaction. It has been e-invoiced. However, it also gives you a warning that you can, oh, sorry, an alternative suggestion that you are expected to use a debit or credit note. So I get a idea. Okay, now I, instead of editing this transaction in this manner, I will cancel it. I will say the same invoice. I will say, instead of reducing the 50 pieces, I can just go there and I can create a credit note for that effect. So I can say credit note, say okay, and I select. All the details are auto populated here, as you can see. uh, all the details are auto populated. Instead of 100 pieces, okay, let me make a credit note for 50 pieces. So what happens in this case? So I say save. Sorry, reason field, reason why we are doing this. Okay, cancel option of supply either fully or partly. Okay, that is the reason I am changing it, because customer wanted only 50 pieces. I have made 100 pieces as an invoice. So I make a save for that. So this is the way I am expected to create a credit note. And even this credit note is, in the technical terms, this is an electronic note. So this electronic note also must contain your QR code. So that is the expectation from the government, and we are fulfilling that. So same concept applies for debit note also. In case if you have made a vendor bill and you are going to alter the material effect of that purchase vendor bill, you are expected to create a debit note, so that that effect is also taken care in the system with a QR code. In case, in this case of B2B, it is not mandatory that I should have a QR code, but still I'm showing you here. But in case of B2C, you must have a QR code for those type of credit notes also. Moving on. The key, another key expectation from the system is your access controls. So who is creating the invoice, etc. So we have the facility for this in users and roles. When we go to the user and the roles, so let me create a role. Say, let's assume there is a supervisor in your organization who manages the things for your business. You create supervisor. So in the supervisory role, what are all the activities that person is expected to perform? You can provide access or remove the access. Say this supervisor is not expected to touch the banking, so I say I don't need the banking facility for him. Whereas he has to accept customers, vendors, he is okay. So you can define what activity or role the person is expected to perform. Maybe view access only, create access only, edit access only, delete access only. So depending on the nature of the role, so you can create a role. And once you create a role, so I create that role as save. And once I create the role, I can create a user and attach the person to the role. Just a minute, it's getting saved. So I can go to the users. Say, let's assume I'm going to invite Bala as a user here. I can say Bala at zohocar.com. That is not his ID, just for the imaginary purpose. I say Bala and I specify he is a supervisor, and I say send. So what will happen is your system mail will go immediately to Bala as a supervisor, zohocorp.com as a supervisor. Once he clicks into that, he can get access to the Zoho books with the restricted rights, whatever as an admin I have created. Now, the key question comes in as far as users and controls is whether as an administrator or any government officer who is authorized to audit the books of accounts, can he or she or yourself can see all the activities associated to the VAT regime. Yes, we have a solution for that in terms of reports. Once you get into the reports, there is an option called activity log. This activity log provides a very detailed information of all the activities performed on the Zoho Books organization ever since you created that organization. So when I say ever since you created the organization, you can see now in the last 30 odd minutes, whatever transactions, of course, this is showing as per UAE time, or no, sorry, as per Saudi time only. You can see ever since I started that, it is keeping all the transactions. Also, it can go from one more step. It will also show you, in case if you have done some different transactions. It can compare different versions. I can say compare. I can different versions. Of course, in this case, it might not be very evident, but you can see from it was in draft stage. It is changed to sent stage. So who has done that activity, by what date and time that particular activity was performed, and what has changed since the last version of the same document or the transaction or the master, whatever it may be, it will show you. So the system has the complete track, and it will not allow any changes, material changes, without recording. So this also is a one of the mandated expectations from the government authority for the e-invoicing. So this is also fulfilled in Zoho Books. Moving on, as far as locking of transactions or records security point of view concerned, the system has the facility wherein you can do the transaction locking. When I say locking, you can lock either sales, purchase, banking, or accountant, or you can also lock all transactions at once. So sometimes what happens, especially in terms of year end, or even VAT filing has been done, you do not want your system to be tampered with any data, even by mistake by any user. So you can either lock one particular aspect, you can give a lock date, and the system will not allow the normal user to edit the transaction or of the particular module. So this is also a very good functionality which is required by the e-invoicing, so that the system is not tampered with. I also talked about the concept of Zoho Books being the repository of all your business transactions. I'll just take one quick example. So let me take one expense. Say for example, I've incurred some, say, very basic thing like maybe automobile expense or consultant expense, some expense I have incurred. So let's assume I have spent some thousand real for this, and I paid it through, say, let's say, petty cash. And let's, for the time being, we will say it's a non-VAT registered guy, you have paid it. So what you can do is you can even attach a receipt to this, and you can attach from a desktop or a cloud or from other documents, you can attach it. And you can have maximum file size allowed is MB. So you can always attach the file, and this can become your repository of information. I'm just showing it from an expense perspective. It need not be just expense, even for your vendor bills. In case if your vendor bill you wanted to attach it, you can attach it here. You can say you can upload the file and you can attach the file here. So you can have up to 5 files, 5 MB each. You can attach the transactions. And we also have the facility of scanning the document and using OCR key, so that even that functionality can be used. But of course, that is an added cost to the, in case if your requirements are that, you can speak to Bala, and then he can take you through that aspect also. But by this you can attach the document with the transaction, be it purchase or be it expense or even sales or quotation, anything, any document you can, this system can act as a repository, and it can help you in many audit situations. Many times what happens, businesses have the documents, but sometimes it is very difficult to locate, and the time these auditors provide you to get the documents is very less. So when a tax audit is done, it is not done for the purpose of um, uh, looking at the actual document. Rather, they wanted to understand how your systems are organized in getting the things at a quicker pace. So the Zoho Books can be one such solution for you to easily organize all your business documents, transaction related documents into the system. So Bala, we need to cover specifically certain parts you told.
Yes.